Heyo everybody, Haku here with my review for Kokkoku Episode 7. We got a lot of questions answered here, and I think every episode I'm like, there can't be too much left, what else is there left to do? And they keep escalating things, so I'm like, okay, we're guaranteed at least another episode or two, but how is it going to make it till 12? So, yeah, at least I'm pretty sure this is supposed to be 12 episodes as normal. But yeah, at the beginning, my first thoughts, what the fuck? The brother is alive? How? I have no idea how. What makes him different from the parents? It doesn't seem to be just because he was a kid. Maybe because his Herald didn't use as much energy up. But even then, it's so very odd. And he doesn't seem to have any memories from when he was a herald, so that's different from what we learn about later in the episode. But either way, that's the first thing we get into, is me just being confused about, well, not only confused about it, because I'm sure it'll be explained later, but just confused at how it's going to go in the future. So she's just going to show up, speaking about Majima, she's just going to show up with two dead bodies and the severely emaciated, generally semi-mummified boy, and show up to a hospital like, oh, help me out here. It's very sketchy, and there's no real explanation for it. Oh, this is my brother and parents. Pay no mind that they haven't aged in 20 years or something. But either way, I like that after that we see Juri coming to terms with everything, being like, this was my responsibility the minute I was born into this family. I've continuously judged all of you, trying to kind of escape from it, because we saw in her real life she was trying to get a job, just made it through college, just trying to escape that household and be on her own. But now she's starting to come to terms with everything that happened with Stasis, and also being a part of her family. And she decides that she can't let people play around with time, so she can't let the cult win here. And all of that just keeps leading into me thinking Juri is one of my favorite protagonists for a show, maybe ever. Because usually I'm more into side characters with a great story or anything, and the protagonist is usually either way too protected or they just have this generic copy and paste character. But Juri, to me, has been a character that not only have I empathized with, but I've really come to cheer her on a lot, and that happens rarely with main characters for me, but it does happen a bit, where I'm just really cheering for the main character to succeed, which is how it should be. But I don't know, with Juri it's even more than that. I really enjoy her as a main character and like seeing the show centered around her. I feel like where a lot of other shows I watch and I'm like, this person shouldn't be the main character, it should be centered around this other person, it'd be a much better story. This I would not want to be centered around anyone but Juri, because she is a great main character. Of course, Majima's an amazing supporting character though, but that's kind of a good role for her. Either way though, Sako says, hey, I'm going to join you guys, but to build some trust, after the grandfather is kind of not so open to him joining. He's like, to build some trust, I can tell you there are 7 members of the cult left. There are 4 disciples, Tobino, who is a hired hand, like Sako was, he was just a hired hand, Shiomi, who is an expert at hidden cameras and wiretapping, and that's obviously who they got to somehow put the cameras and wiretaps into their home when none of them were there somehow. And finally Sagawa, of course, the leader. And it seems as though Sagawa and Shiomi are looking at the brother and thinking, how'd he come back from being stalled? They figured that the specters must be attracted to the Yukawa family. So that means that somebody that died, why did one of the specters not go to Makoto's mom? Who knows? Or to their mom, maybe because she married into the family? But no, I thought Takafumi, I didn't think he was actually the grandfather's son. I thought he was the son-in-law. So he came into this already. So I mean, it's not, he didn't come into this the same way that Makoto and the way that what was his name, Tsubasa did. So of course, yeah, that is irrelevant. But it seems like the mother and the sister, if we're judging it by Juri's relations, both of them should have come back by now probably. But either way, The specters seem to be attracted to the Yukawa family. Sagawa has put it all together. He's like, when we look at the people who we know have become heralds, they're people that have been put into this, that have been put into the stasis without knowing beforehand that stasis even existed. So that sort of created that dissonance, that confusion, and that's part of what allowed them to be heralds. So from him thinking about that, it reminded me earlier of when he was sort of using himself as a test subject to try to summon them, and that made me think, if he's trying to study it in this way, and we've already seen that he's trying to research the stasis, he might be trying to make himself into a herald that can still somehow contain himself mentally, a herald that can somehow still be in control of his actions. So I was thinking that may be Sagawa's plan. But he then explains his plan. He says that he wants to observe the world, and he's going to leave the cult to Shiomi and have Shiomi seal the spell off so that he can just sit without them using the spell and observe the world. But that doesn't quite make sense, because that would mean that basically the brother, Majima's little brother, has been a herald this whole time. Wouldn't that mean that he would have observed the world this whole time? So it's kind of odd, but he's still alive after coming back from being a herald, so maybe he will have some memories of stuff. But again, it's a confusing thing. We got a lot of questions answered, more questions brought up. But the one cult guy hears the plan being expressed between Sagawa and Shiomi, and goes to the others and says that Sagawa has betrayed them. Juri is an absolute sexy badass. We see her new outfit, and she plans to destroy the stone to make sure it doesn't fall into anyone else's hands. Probably not the best idea, because it's probably best to contain the stone, regulate it, make sure nobody uses it for evil. But what the cult's doing is wrong, playing around with time and stuff, and you can't really think that nobody's going to end up using it for evil or for personal gain that way eventually. And it's kind of like what Sagawa said about the cult. Eventually somebody stronger would take the stone from us to use its power for evil if we kept using it, and brought attention to ourselves. So, I don't know. I think that I agree with Juri wanting to destroy it. But on the other hand, I think it might be good for Juri to protect it rather than destroy it. To not just overuse it, to pretty much what the grandfather was doing, to keep it on the shelf, protect it, don't really use it unless it's an actual emergency. That seems to be the best way of the stone being in existence whatsoever. But either way, we have the story that Sagawa found the stone after 200 plus years of this cult being in existence, and the stone worship had kind of been forgotten. Sagawa found the stone that they had and kind of made kind of a resurgence of it. Juri and Sako then take out one of the cultists, leaving 6 left. And Takafumi, we have a scene with him, and so many of the comments I saw in the episode were, man, the father really sucks. He's a really shitty guy. Yeah, Takafumi wants to use the stone for his own personal gain, and he thinks, oh, these imbeciles are going to destroy it. And the people he is thinking, oh, they're going to destroy it, but they don't understand, that's his daughter and father-in-law, I guess, and they know much better than Takafumi does in all of this. So yeah, he thinks they're going to end up destroying the stone, and he wants to keep it for himself, which is just no, like, I just said I want Juri to keep it and protect it, but Takafumi's probably one of the ones you want to protect the stone from. Tobino, then the hired hand guy, finds the stone along with the cultist guy. I don't remember it being left there, so I guess I'm just being forgetful. But yeah, Tobino finds the stone, gives it to the one cultist guy who overheard the conversation, who, of course, wants to go and confront Sagawa about it instead of playing it cool. But Sagawa explains to Shiomi that all the cult scriptures are not really your normal not really your normal things that are talking, that are, it's like, he brought up that they talk about stuff like normal religions do, like policies on certain things or ways to live, but those are kind of like not really important in the cult's teachings. They're sort of just they're things that the cult got distracted by, but the actual writings seem to be first-hand observations and experiments. And they got it tested like by handwriting analysts and found out they were all written by the same person, but the first was written in the 1300s and the last was written in the 1800s. So there was a 500-year window where somebody had to have been alive to have written all of their scriptures. So Sagawa, his plan is to extend his life form, or extend his lifespan, but we have no idea how that's even possible, because you would think if he does it in the way that, say, the brother did. The only way I think it's possible, because we see that the brother, when he came back from being a herald, he didn't really have any memory of what happened. So the only way for him to observe the place throughout, or to observe the world throughout history, and be able to do that, would be to have somebody use stasis. Like, as an example, he would become a herald, use stasis every 10 years, bring him back from being a herald so he could write down his observations, learn about the world, and then go back to being a herald, have them undo stasis again, and do the same thing 10 years later. That would, something like that would be the only way that that'd be possible, because it doesn't seem like the heralds have this constant memory. Yeah. Either way, I guess that seems like the only way it's done, but I think that was the end of the episode. Sagawa was confronted, so he begins the transformation into a herald. But yeah, I thought that the show itself is very, very exciting. It's really great. I love the depth and the mystery of it. It's been one of the things that have continued to be the best throughout the season. Because just the darker, more dramatic series like this are ones that I generally like, and I like the mystery behind the world. It's it's very hard to describe, but I feel like I don't want to compare it to Death Note, but something like that, where, say, there's a lot of rules involved with something, or it's just generally sometimes needlessly complicated, but complex. So, yeah, I generally like things like that. Juri is an amazing main character. We found out a ton of information here, which of course brings up a ton more questions. But yeah, I guess that's about it. As a score, I'd give it 9 extended lifespans out of 10. I hope you enjoyed the video. Like if you did like the video, comment down there to tell me what you thought of this episode, what you thought of my thoughts on it. Subscribe for more Kokkoku, much more on the channel. Follow on Twitter if you want. I can try to keep you updated there and stuff for the channel. If you want a link to our Discord server, just ask and I'll give you one. That's it. Yeah, I think that's everything. That's it. So thank you once again for watching, and I'll see you all next time.